Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it's time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning, of course, we've got none other than Jonathan Small and Vicky Fennell. Jonathan, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. It's good to be back here on a rainy morning. Yesterday was a nice day. The past couple of days has been real nice. Now we're getting some rain, so trying to hang in there. Obviously, there was a couple big football games on over the weekend. Did you check any NFL?
I was busy Sunday, but not too busy to see Tom Terrific win.
I was thinking about you when you put the comments on Facebook. Tom Brady going back to Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
And,
Homecoming for the King.
Homecoming from the King. It was, I tell you, it was a pretty good game, though. It wasn't like, no blowout or anything. New England hung in there. Could have won that game.
They actually could have.
Right.
Yeah.
But just, a couple breaks here and there, things, field goals. I guess they missed a field goal that could have probably clinched it.
Yeah, they missed the field goal, hit the upper arm, boom. They kept playing it over again, boom. You hear that big,
exactly,
that big boom as.
But I tell you, as a Cowboy fan, I'm feeling on cloud nine.
Cowboys won.
They won, very impressive.
Blowout.
They had them blown out, and then they let the gas. They took the what's they call it? They took the pedal off of the gas, and then let them come back, and then but we had the game under control. I had to go down to a sports bar to watch that game, and I don't regret it because I was.
You want to see that on a big screen, huh?
Big screen, and the way we looked was impressive, man. The defense has really improved, but it's still early. You can't get too excited too early.
All right. Yeah.
I don't know if you like football. What teams?
I worked in football.
Oh, okay, that's right. You did.
Arena football, right?
Okay, that's right, you did.
Arena football. Yeah, loved every minute of it. Still like football. I was very happy to hear Dallas had won that. I thought about you, and I said,
on cloud nine.
He's on cloud nine.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, Vicky Fennell, how was your weekend?
Eventful, action-packed.
Eventful, action-packed.
Yeah, it was. It was very condensed. But got a lot done. Things are winding down with Mom at the rehab facility. She'll be home in a couple of weeks. So, we went down and hung out with her for a bit, and it was just nice. It's nice, and the usual thing, the errands, and
The usual.
The usual, yeah. But the weather cooperated. That's what made it great, especially on Saturday. Sunday was a little iffy, but Saturday was the day. I would say that was the pick of the weekend. Yeah. How about you?
My weekend was. What did I do?
Meetings usually.
Meetings, yeah. I mean, Saturdays are like the Alliance.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Greater Hartford African American Alliance meets every Saturday. One of the few groups in the world that meets every week. Every week. So our meetings start at 10, they end at 12. Then we have the after meeting.
Are you still doing it via Zoom or virtually?
Yeah, via Zoom. Okay. And the after meeting can be at least 2 hours, sometimes 3. Then there's a late night
version. Oh my God.
Action type meeting. So
man, it sounds like a meeting I was in yesterday.
So
this meeting went from 7 p.m. I went out, I came back in, and it was still on. And I think things probably was starting to wind down, like maybe about 10:30, 11 o'clock. I said, "This is unbelievable." It was a lot of information that was being transmitted, but
you gotta, if you want things to get done, give it to someone who's busy. Because those are the people who get stuff done.
Yeah, I know that. I'm one of those people. I know.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan's been busy getting great guests for us as usual. The lighting in here seems odd, but we'll work with that later on. But nonetheless, Jonathan Small is our official booker of guests, and so he has found us another great guest. And so we're going to go to our guests now. So we'll turn it over to the capable hands of Jonathan Small.
Okay, this morning on Morning Talk with J. Stan McCauley Live, I guess this guest can be titled as a legend, particularly a radio legend, and I don't say that lightly. She has an extensive background in the music and radio industry, and we have the privilege this morning to have as our guest. She is the CEO of Influence Entertainment, also a celebrity strategist, based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, no other than Miss Dyana Williams. Good morning, Dyana. How are you doing?
Morning, Jonathan. I'm doing excellent. How about you?
I'm doing fine, and you? It's good to have you on our program, and we look forward to this particular interview.
I just wanted, how come you didn't discuss the Eagles game? They're lost.
Oh, that's right. From Philadelphia. I think the Eagles are not
I'm
playing
listening to all these other teams. What about the Eagles?
What about the Eagles? My dad is an Eagles fan. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, diehard Eagles. I'm from Philly, so you know. Yeah.
Are you from Philly?
Yeah. Oh,
excellent.
Yeah. Eagles.
Philly in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if I thought the Eagles lost yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
They did lose.
They did lose, yeah. So,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we took care of y'all last week, the Cowboys, so I feel good about that. Get the Eagles out of the way and then move on to the Giants. Ms. Williams, exactly, could you let people know a little bit about your background before we get into our topic?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want to say good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
It is an honor, a distinct pleasure to be here today. My story is pretty simple. I'm a native New Yorker. I am a Boricua, Morena from New York. My mother, Puerto Rican from San Juan. My father from Culpeper, Virginia, African American. I had the best upbringing, living as a small child in a very strong, beautiful, loving community in the Bronx. And then we moved to Puerto Rico for a period of time where I got to perfect my Spanish a little more. And then my parents divorced. We moved to, my mother and I moved to Harlem. And thank goodness for that. What an incredible upbringing, really, because I got in New York culture. What my parents exposed me to was theater, dance, music. And music is in the very core of my DNA. So native New Yorker, radio, my love, my first love, and television. I've been doing both since I was a teenager. And I studied flute when I was a young girl with Jimmy Heath, the great jazz musician from Philadelphia. And so I wanted to be a flautist, but that didn't work out so well for me. But my knowledge, my affinity for Black music in particular, served me well because I went into radio and television. And as I said, that's where I've been. But I'm also an advocate for Black music, having co-founded June Black Music Month with broadcaster Ed Wright and my ex, Kenny Gamble, one of the architects of the sound of Philadelphia. I'm a mother. I have 3 adult children. And that's an interesting experience in and of itself, being a parent of adult children. And I am most proud of being Nana Dyana to Luke Gamble, my grandson, who will be 7 in January.
Okay, congratulations.
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you. I love Nanahood.
Yes. Okay, so basically, you got your start from what I'm hearing in the music, radio, television industry in New York first. Is that how it got started?
Absolutely. As a teenager, as I mentioned, I studied with Jimmy Heath at the Jazzmobile program, which was established by Dr. Billy Taylor. It was a free program to engage young people in the Harlem community into music. And they were free lessons. And so I signed up for that. Free things, yay. But music was at the very, like I said earlier, the core of what I feel that God has placed me on this planet to promote, to acknowledge, and celebrate people who promote the culture through the music. So New York is where I started. However, my first professional paying job where I lived on that paycheck was from 96.3 WHUR in the nation's capital, the original Quiet Storm station, and the Quiet Storm founded by my best friend, Kathy Hughes, the founder of Radio One. So DC is where I started. Then I went to New York. Then I came to Philadelphia. And then I've been in Philly ever since. But I've done a little bit of everything from syndicated radio to, I think I've done in fact, I know I have. I've done every time slot in radio, from overnights when I was at WBLS in New York to morning drive when I was in DC at WMMJ, middays, afternoon drive. I've done every shift. And I've had just about every position. The only position I haven't had is owner, although I have stock in Radio One.
Ms. Williams, I was just going to ask you about, did you get started about the same time as Kathy Hughes? So you kind of answered part of my question that I was going to ask you. But exactly, was there any challenges or any issues, or was it kind of a tough industry to get into for an African-American woman at that particular time span?
You know, Jonathan, great question. And we're talking, I want to give perspective to the time span. We're talking about the early 1970s. Was it difficult? Initially, it kind of felt it might have been a little challenging. If I'd had the internet, it would have been much easier, but I had to go to the library to research radio stations. It was quite a process. But for me, at that time, women were not plentiful on the radio as they are now. Now you can hear two women back to back on the air. That was almost taboo and against the rules, because they were like, two women back to back. So for me, it wasn't that difficult, because I had a person who recognized my talent very early, and that was Bob Nighthawk Terry in Washington, D.C. I sent an air check to him on the eve of my 19th birthday. I was hired at WHUR. I was a teenager. Literally, I was 18 when I went for this interview at WHUR. And Bob Nighthawk Terry, if you saw the movie Talk to Me, he was one of the characters in that particular film about Petey Greene. And so at the time that I got into radio, Jonathan, hardly any women. There was one other woman at the radio station on air when I arrived. And like I said, now there's nothing to hearing 2, 3, 4 women on the air. Well, and I met Kathy Hughes when I turned 19. She was working at WHUR, which is how we forged our powerful union that lasts to this moment.
Well, that's very good to hear that, actually, you know, that you still have that
Best
bond
BFF.
with Kathy Hughes. One last question. I'm going to turn this over to Vicki and Stan. I don't know if it sounds like you might not have been in Washington, D.C. before Black entertainment television got started, or were you in Washington, D.C. at that particular time?
There. I was absolutely there when Bob Johnson started Black entertainment television. Definitely. In fact, I worked for BET for a period of time as a freelance entertainment reporter. My boss was Billy Woodruff, who is now a very successful director. He did a lot of those Toni Braxton videos that we loved back in the day, but he is a filmmaker now, and he was my boss at BET when I was doing freelance entertainment. So yeah, BET was in DC.
Okay, very impressive. Very impressive. Vicki?
Yes, thanks for being here, Dyana. I'm just listening to your story, and it kind of brings back memories to the 70s when I was a kid. But just, you know, the sounds of Philadelphia, the rate where radio seemed to be the anchor, you know, in the Black community. You know, hearing, you know, various artists and just the community radio, you know, concept, you know, where the radio station, which is something that we had here in Hartford, used to have here in Hartford, WKND radio, where they were always out in the community. And the news and the personalities that were part of that time. I see your business is as a celebrity strategist. Explain a little bit about what it is that you do, you know, in terms of helping celebrities, I guess, with their strategy. I guess this sounds like something like building their brand.
Absolutely, that would be accurate. Okay. And good morning to you, Vicki. It's a pleasure to see you. Yes, I work with emerging as well as established high-profile individuals in entertainment. The majority of my clients are in the music industry. However, I work with directors, actors, CEO, athletes. I've worked with Allen Iverson, Roy Jones Jr., former heavyweight boxer. I've worked with just a wide, group of people who are heard and seen in the public eye. And so what I do with them is do message development. We discuss best approach, best practices to sharing who, what, where, when, why, and how of whatever they're selling, promoting, whether it's a film, an album, a book. I am typically brought in to help sort out how to best say what it is they're talking about.
Well, obviously, Ms. Williams, we're going to get into the impact of Black music, which you seem to be very passionate about, and you seem not only to be at a one level of a person in the entertainment industry, but you kind of have an activism in you, and you promote a lot of issues related towards the Black musicians in entertainment, I guess their rights and exactly what they are entitled of. Is this kind of some of your role as the CEO of Influence Entertainment, or is this something separate from the two?
Well, throughout my career, I've always been an activist as it pertains to promoting the rights of music makers. I'm also very active in the Recording Academy, which is known to millions as the Grammy organization. I'm a past president, currently on the board in Philadelphia, and also part of the Black Music Collective for the Grammy organization. So activism has always been at the forefront of my experience. My parents instilled in me give back and community service. And that has always been one of the standards of my experience as a human being. And so June, Black Music Month, which I mentioned earlier, I helped to establish with my ex, Kenny Gamble, and also broadcaster Ed Wright. And the purpose of June Black Music Month is to put a highlight, a spotlight, if you would, on the contributions of music makers and music consumers as well. So it's a celebratory month. It's not to say that we do not celebrate and recognize the contributions of music makers the other 11 months of the year, because it is an ongoing recognition of America's indigenous music and culture. But it's a highlight month. So yes, worked very diligently in Congress to get legislation passed recognizing the contributions of the multi-billion-dollar music industry as it pertains to all genres of Black music. We don't think of music in those terms, but the reality is it's big business, and oftentimes the creators, the songwriters, the singers, the musicians, the engineers, the producers, they do not receive their fair share of what they produce, of their creativity. So I've been an advocate for a long time to work on securing rights for musicians, and also highlighting, as I said, our immense contributions to American and global culture.
Well, I guess let me ask you a question. I guess when you look at the differences, let's say between the Grammy Awards and the American Music Awards, is there a difference between those two awards and, let's say, the BET Entertainment Awards or the Soul Train Awards or the NAACP Image Awards? Do those type of awards at the back end get the same recognition and, I guess, influence that the Grammys and the American Music Awards receive?
Well, first, I will tell you that all of those awards are valued because they celebrate people. Who doesn't want to get an award? Who doesn't want to be recognized for their talents, for their energy, for their projects? Every artist I work with wants a Grammy. Most of them mention their desire to have a Grammy. And why a Grammy? In the music industry, it is the epitome of recognition and success. And it is a peer award. People who vote for Grammys, I happen to be a voting member of the Recording Academy of the Grammy organization. The award is given to people, to your peers. And in the case of the other awards, I can't tell you who votes, because I know more about the Recording Academy, but everybody wants to be celebrated. And so the music industry's highest honor is the Grammy Award. The American Music Award is valuable, as is VH1. The BET Awards are about to air this week, I believe on the 5th. I'm not sure of the date, but they taped over the weekend. Everybody wants to be elevated. So the awards are all different and they're all valued.
Well, see, the thing about when we say Black Awards or Black music, and I don't have no problem with that title because obviously you want to identify yourself. But sometimes I kind of get the feeling it's almost like when we use the word minority, it's like and I'm not putting what you're advocating in this category. I just want to get everything clarified. When we say like the Black Awards or the Black music involvement, is it somewhat like we're trying to advocate our rights, that we have to prove ourselves, or is it just a level of accomplishment that Black people have accomplished in the industry? Because I think sometimes you might be a little confused, okay, when you say we have to have the NAACP Black Image Awards, which is fine. I mean, I don't have no problem with that. But it's like, are we still at the second level in the music entertainment industry as Black people, or are we right on par with everybody else, in your opinion?
We are the flavor, as far as I'm concerned. Black folks, we are the flavor of so much of language, dance. I mean, we inform every strata of culture. And when one travels, which I've done extensively around the planet. I haven't been everywhere, but I've been to Europe, Africa, South America, throughout the Caribbean, throughout the United States, but all over the world. Black culture is front and center. In this country, we are often not recognized for the very talents and influence that we have, not just on culture, but economically, which is what I was referring to, the music, the Black genres in the music industry being at the forefront. In fact, right now, do you know what the '1 selling genre is in the world? A question I'm asking.
Vicky,
do you know what it is?
Y'all might have to get it.
I don't know. Is it hip hop still or jazz?
It is, you said it accurately. Hip hop.
Hip hop.
American hip hop created by African Americans is the '1 selling genre in the music industry globally. Now, that's pretty major. So when you talk about shows like the NAACP Image Awards, those shows are set up by that particular organization to recognize people that oftentimes get overlooked and then do not get acknowledged and celebrated in the broader type of award shows. Hence, we have a specific award show to recognize the contributions of Black people. I don't have any problems with any of that. Because, as I said, who doesn't want to be celebrated and recognized? And in the case of Black folks, we've been under-recognized for the very contributions we've made in American society and culture and global. But yeah, I'm all for the BET Awards, the NAACP Awards, the Grammy Awards, all of the awards. I like to see people get praised and recognized for what they do when they do it well.
Okay, Ms. Williams, what are some of the biggest issues currently today that you still are advocating and fighting for in Black music?
Payment. More often than not, a lot of African-American artists sign really bad deals without consent of an attorney, involvement of an entertainment attorney. They sign what I would describe as oppressive deals that lock them in for many years and not properly compensating them for their talents. And so that is an issue. Now, with the technology that exists in the world, streaming is the way most people, young people in particular, receive their music. Grown folks like me, we still buy music. We still like physical copies. You know, I come from the world of cassettes and CDs and 8-tracks and albums. I even have a couple of 78s in my record collection. I have a turntable. Yes. You know, I like vinyl. But streaming is the way now, and it's not, you know, the genie is out of the bottle. And so with the streaming services, you pay one subscription fee monthly, and you have access to a broad catalog of music. That's how most people are consuming their music. But I will tell you that the laws that are on the books, the copyright laws and the laws that pertain to how creatives are paid, songwriters are paid, are antiquated. They're from the 20th century, and they did not take into account the future and technology, which is where we are now in the present. And so a lot of songwriters are not being properly paid. What they get paid for streaming are percentages of a penny on the dollar. And that is, I mean, people have to make, just because you write a song that we dance to and sing to doesn't mean that you don't have a mortgage or light bills or need money to pay food for your family and groceries. So I am working with the Grammy organization. We go up to Capitol Hill and we lobby on behalf of creatives to make certain that they are properly compensated. And at this current time, they are not. Some people in the music industry make tons of money and some others make very little.
Right. Stan, I know sometimes when you're quiet, you're in the listening mode. So I don't know if you have anything you want to say.
Well, I'm always listening and always learning because when you have experts in. But I guess you just touched upon the compensation, and with like the Amazons, the Sonys, and all of the big players buying up catalogs and owning all the rights, where I guess the battle would be. I buy this catalog, I own all this music, so I could play it ad nauseum. And as you talked about for the streaming, that seems like a very daunting battle. What does the success look like in this fight, with Capitol Hill and some of the legislation that you're trying to bring about?
Success is changing antiquated laws, modernizing. And we've had some success as an organization. We have something called the Modernization Act. So we are working hard to get lawmakers to understand that the laws from the 20th century are not applicable to what is going on now in the 21st century. So yes, it is a formidable battle, but one that we are prepared to fight and to win, to make certain that creatives are compensated properly.
Yeah, because that's horrible, because what we have now didn't exist then.
Exactly.
And I don't.
So that's what we're saying to legislators. We're saying, see, this law, this was from I forget the exact year, but again, 20th century laws, and trying to fit them to the model of what is happening now with today's technology. So, we just keep fighting. We just get in the trenches, we keep lobbying, we write letters, we send emails, we have in-person meetings. In fact, the Recording Academy, we're about to go up to Capitol Hill again. And a lot of this will be done through the format that we're on right now, through Zoom, because we are still dealing with the Delta variant in this ongoing pandemic. So we are using the technology to still be able to communicate with one another and to advocate for creatives.
You talked a little bit earlier about the impact of growing up in New York and art, entertainment, dance, and the impact of real community outlets on young people. I know the Grammy, the Grammy organization is very involved with young people in school in the arts. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of just music and art in school, which seems to be like they're taking it out of school these days?
No, you're absolutely correct. It is unfortunate when you look at school districts across the United States. Several things have been removed from the curriculum, and one of them is music. I don't know about the three of you, but when I was growing up, you had to take music.
Yep.
You had to have gym.
Yes.
These were things that were part of the curriculum. And now when you look at our children, they don't get to go. We used to go outside and play. I mean, run around, play games. We were active. Young kids, including my grandson. He called me recently. My grandson is 6.5. He has a cell phone. And he called me, and I was telling my son, my oldest son, this, Khalif, last night. My grandson calls me, and he has his headphones in his hand. And slowly but surely, the headphones were moving up to his head and his ears. He's putting it on. And now, mind you, he FaceTime with me. And next thing I know, he's got the headphones on and he's looking and he's playing the video game while he's trying to engage with me. 6.5, okay? But I was like, he was not focused on the conversation. So something in his psyche was like, I need to check in with my grandmother. But then the other part of it was, I need to play this video game right now. Right now, while I'm looking and talking to my grandmother. And I said to him, I said, Luke, it is apparent that you don't want to have a real conversation with me because you are more interested in that video game. So deuces, call me back when you can give me full attention. I mean, I just think it's a cute story, but it also speaks to how young people are, very tethered to computers and video games. When we went to school, the adults in this room, in this conversation, we had music, we had gym, we were active, we were exposed. That has changed. And I remember a few years ago when I learned that they were not teaching cursive anymore in schools. My question was, how are people going to sign documents? Well, they're not going to sign documents. What they're doing, think about it, y'all, is thumbprints, fingerprints,
e-sign,
X's,
e-sign, yeah.
Exactly. So young people today, they don't know how to do cursive. And writing a letter, forget it. So I think that what has happened in our school systems is horrendous in terms of, because music, especially for young Black children, music is a language that soothes us, it lifts us, it energizes us, it teaches us. When you listen to young Black children in any community in this country or the world, they know every lyric to every song. So imagine if we put curriculum to music, our kids would, and our children are very bright, very, very smart. But music permeates just about every young Black child and Black adults' lives, whether it's Black genre music or other genres of music. Music can be very central to our experience as people. And I'm talking specifically about Black people. I believe that to be the case for all people. But what I know best are Puerto Rican, Latino, and Black people. And that's the music and the culture that I've studied and experienced the most.
Ms. Williams, I believe there's a National African American Museum in Nashville, Tennessee, if I'm saying it correctly, that you are involved with. Could you kind of let people know a little bit about that particular museum?
Yes, and please call me Dyana. If any of y'all call me Miss Williams again, I'm gonna close my computer.
Okay.
I feel like I'm in school. I'm the teacher.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. NAMAM is how we refer to the National Museum of African American Music in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, 5th and Broadway, in the very heart of downtown Nashville. This is an incredible museum. I am proud to serve on the board of this museum and have been involved for almost a decade. This is a 22 in the years making 56,000 square foot facility that covers almost every genre of Black music and subgenres as well. I encourage everyone to go. We had our grand opening in June, Black Music Month of this past June, and it is an exquisite institution. We do a lot of educational programs. We're on social media at NAMAM, that's NMAAM. Please go visit, consider taking out a membership, gifting membership to your loved ones. I say that because last Christmas, holidays, that's what I did. I went down my list and just families started, gifting memberships, because knowledge is power. And the more information we have about our culture, what has transpired before, what is going on now, helps us move forward into our future. So yes, the National Museum of African American Music, it is everything. And I'm very happy to be involved.
Okay, that's well spoken and good to know as well. Dyana, obviously you live and based out of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia has a reputation of putting out some of the best music qualities, best music artists in the country. Your former husband, Kenny Gamble, was very instrumental with Philadelphia International Records. And when you look at the impact of what Philadelphia has provided to the country with talent, you know, Patti LaBelle, I believe, still lives in Philadelphia. And you have Hall & Oates, they're from Philadelphia, Jill Scott, Teddy Pendergrass. I mean, the list is like a mile long. What is it about Philadelphia that has, in your opinion, produced so much great music talent?
It's in the water. It's in the water supply.
Yeah.
But I didn't get it. I don't get it. Patti LaBelle is my girlfriend. She told me to stick to talking on the radio. No, you have hit the nail on the head. And I want to acknowledge that most American cities, regions, have their own sound and have a plethora of gifted people that make great music. Memphis, Motown in Detroit, the sound of solo records, Dick Griffey, California, Los Angeles, the Whispers. You know, you've got these pockets. However, what I know best and what I love most is the music that has been created in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And thank you for acknowledging Kenny Gamble, because he and his partners, Tom Bell and Leon Huff, we hear Gamble and Huff, but Tom Bell is the third partner. And these gentlemen are celebrating their 50th anniversary as partners, which is unheard of in almost any business, including family businesses sometimes. But Gamble, Huff, and Bell are still partners. And they have created a body of work. When you think about it, you cited some of the artists. Teddy Pendergrass was my best friend until his death. I delivered the obituary and organized his memorial with his wife, Joan. Patti LaBelle, I saw her the other day at the memorial services for Sarah Dash, 1/3 of the group LaBelle, who made her transition last Monday. And you're right, Patti is still here, lives in the area. Jill Scott, you know, you had the next wave generation, Jazzy Jeff, Will Smith from Philadelphia, the first artist to receive a Grammy for rap, hip hop. So what is it about Philadelphia? We have great community here. And not to say that doesn't exist in other cities, but folks go to church together, they go to the masjid together, we play, socialize together. And I don't know, there's just something where these folks, some of whom you cited and others who we don't have enough time to mention, are just gifted. And here's another thing I want to point out about Philadelphia. Philadelphia was the first capital of the United States before Washington, D.C. So there was a very strong Black community of free enslaved people. And then, of course, you had enslaved people, but you had the Quaker movement, the abolitionist movement was very, very strong in Philadelphia for a period of time. And we had renowned musicians that were of color, Black folks in Philadelphia. So we have had a long tradition of creating talented artists, elevating their careers, celebrating their music. And it just has continued to this very second. There's a whole new crop of artists coming out of Philadelphia. Bree Steves, PNB Rock, Meek Mill, the list is long. And again, in all genres, we have Lauren Talese, who is a jazz vocalist and won the Sarah Vaughan competition. There were about 200 women from all over the world. And she's from originally Cleveland, but she resides in Philly. Lauren Talese, check her out. There's just a great, and I could go on about the upcoming musicians in every single genre, in classical European music, classical American music, jazz, I mean, across every genre. But, we are imbued. Black folks, we have something special when it comes to music and ability to create talent. We just have an extra dose of it, I think.
And would you also classify even today that R&B music is still really Black music? I mean, I know you can change it and say, well, Michael Jackson was the king of pop, and people might assume pop was white music, or the majority of the pop sound was mainstream. Okay, let's be more politically correct. But I mean, R&B is really something that the black music was kind of labeled as in the beginning stages, and I think R&B is very popular to this day. Do you see any impact that R&B music has made in the country that you can kind of let people know?
Certainly. R&B music. I mean, again, every single genre that we engage in, when you reference Michael Jackson as the king of pop, pop is popular, is short for popular. And Michael Jackson was the most popular artist when he was living and performing and touring and recording. So for him to assign the title, or to have been assigned the title of king of pop, was accurate. Same thing with Rihanna. She's a pop artist. Beyonce is a pop artist. And much of their music is in the R&B genre and range. And what R&B music has done, and R&B stands for rhythm and blues. It is not a new assignment or title. It has been in existence for a long time. Proponents of it, I mean, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Donny Hathaway, the list is long of artists who were doing rhythm and blues back in the day. I mean, I'm talking back in the 20th century. But Black folks have always been in the forefront. Billie Holiday, Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who played the guitar, and I consider her one of the mothers of rock music, because a lot of people think rock music was created by white folks. I venture to challenge that notion. We had Bo Diddley, we had Rosetta Tharpe, we had Little Richard, we had Chuck Berry, and many, many others who were architects of rock music and were studied by white artists like Eric Clapton, the Rolling Stones. They have cited how Black music informed what they did as far as their particular brand of rock music. So I think I lost your question somewhere in there, but where the
unsung heroes in the creation.
Right.
And you're often imitated and not compensated, which is not good.
Well, Vicky, you took the words right out of my mouth when you said the Beatles, because I mentioned the Beatles.
And the Beatles,
And I guess the Beatles had a lot of influence from Black musicians.
Yeah, they said so.
To go along with
take guess out of your statement. It is evident, and you can hear it. And Billy Preston, a Black man who's no longer with us physically, but his music is here, was called the fifth Beatle, and he was very involved with the Beatles. So they clearly listened to Black music. They've said it in their interviews. Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, Ringo Starr. I'm a Beatles fan. I love me some Paul McCartney.
Mary Wells was going around with them for a little bit, wasn't she? I think for a bit.
I don't know about Mary Wells.
I think Mary Wells. My mother is a collector of ebony magazines, and so she. I think there was one issue where Mary Wells was, I guess, with them. So,
well, she may have toured with them. That's very possible. I know, for instance, I just mentioned my good girlfriend Sarah Dash, 1/3 of LaBelle, who transitioned on September 20th. She toured with Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones for some time. You know, there's a great film. It's called 20 Feet from Stardom. Did either of you see it?
No, I didn't see it. Okay.
Okay, great film. And it talks about the background singers. And more often than not, most of them are African-American. They're Black. And the film is a documentary. It was an award-winning. I think it might have won an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken. But it's called 20 Feet from Stardom. Okay. Great film. But it shows the pervasive influence of Black artists in even rock music as done by white people. Because usually most of their background singers and or musicians are Black.
Right.
So, you know, we're everywhere. We're everywhere doing everything and doing it with excellence.
And one thing I just thought about, I mean, I don't know if you agree with this opinion, but I just thought when you mentioned Philadelphia, Tammy Terrell was really on the verge, I thought, of being she was a great singer with Marvin Gaye, singing duets. But I think had she lived, she might have really been on par with Diana Ross, because I thought her sound was real unique. And I don't think he was in Philadelphia at that time when she was coming along. But What do you think of Tammy Terrell? I was just curious, for her sound that she had with Marvin Gaye, with the duets, that she sung with.
Another great Philadelphian. Thank you for citing her. Tammy Terrell, short-lived life. I think she died in her 20s, late 20s, maybe even early 20s. It was tragic, but the body of work that she has left us with Marvin Gaye, the duets. I mean, those were the songs I grew up listening to as a teenager. The moment you said Tammy Terrell, I just started, every day there's something new. I just started hearing her voice and hearing the songs. And another tragic loss for us, but great to still have her music. I don't know, and I would disagree with you about Diana Ross, and that Tammy Terrell was on track to have the career that Diana Ross had.
Okay.
Diana Ross had, one, she was super talented, and she also had a relationship with the owner of the company, which was Berry Gordy and Motown, and he chose her to propel her to greater heights, and she was the golden child for Motown and Berry Gordy. They have a daughter together, and now they have a long-standing friendship. They're both still living. Berry Gordy is amazing. He is still with us, and Diana is still with us. And look, she's given us her talented children. She's got one daughter, the daughter with Berry Gordy. She's a jazz singer. Then we know Tracy Ellis Ross. She's the actress from Blackish. And then Evan Ross, her son, is also an actor. So, next generation Diana Ross or Motown inspired or raised children. But yeah, I think Diana Ross was on track to have a bigger career because of Berry Gordy's investment and commitment to her.
Well, let me just clarify something. Maybe what I really meant was I thought Tammy Terrell's voice, just her voice alone, could have been very close. I mean, they have a different type of sound and a different type of style, but I just thought her voice as a singer would have been maybe not surpassed Diana Ross, but if you really listen to some of her music, she had a unique sound to her. I don't know if people really realize that. She was singing, I thought some of the songs and the duets that she sung was kind of ahead of its time if you really listen to it. I mean, this was about the late 60s mostly, and probably early 70s. I think she died in 1970, so it had to be like the late 60s. But if you listen to her music, she had a real unique voice and a real unique sound to her. So
I will not disagree with you on that, and I might add that the majority of the hit songs that she and her partner Marvin Gaye sang were written by Valerie Simpson and Nick Ashford. They produced and wrote a lot of those hit records for Motown, for Tammy, and for Marvin. And boy, Marvin Gaye, I, to this second, love What's Going On. It is my #1 favorite album of all time. And the reason for it is when it came out in 1971, the year I graduated from high school, it was revolutionary then and remains so because it is relevant through time. I mean, listen to the lyrics. Marvin talking about the condition of our planet. We're in a critical situation now with climate change. The planet is warming, the sea levels are rising, the pollution. I mean, all the things that he addressed. War, we're just coming out of a 20-year Afghanistan war that America lost, just like the Vietnam War. And he was, of course, referencing the Vietnam War in What's Going On. But look at that seminal album, that landmark album, produced, written, and sung by a Black man. What's Going On? A question that's still, and a statement more than a question, that continues now.
Well, Dyana, why do you think in today's music era you don't see the musicians, and maybe they do, it's just not being promoted like it used to be, putting out songs with somewhat of a message? Even the hip-hop artists, you came along in the Bronx, the birthplace of hip-hop. It seemed like to me it was a time when musicians in that era, they sung great songs, but they put a message out. Kenny Gamble, your former husband, with the OJs, they had many songs that was great songs, but it had a message behind it. And it just seems like today you don't really hear somewhat of a conscientious, influential message into what's really going on. Jill Scott is a little unique. I think she does put a message out with her sound, but the majority don't seem to do that.
Well, how are you listening to your music? That's my question for you. And then I'll answer your question.
I listen to my music online.
Okay.
And the radio too, but most, it's like a combination of both. I listen to the radio, but I would say online is why I listen to most of my music today.
Right. So most people, grown people, we're missing a lot of music because we're kind of narrow in how we consume our music. But the reality is that there's still consciousness, music being created by artists like Common, J. Cole. There are artists that have many messages of consciousness and concern in their lyrics. The older we get, we tend to distance ourselves from what young people are creating. I don't know what that's all about, but I work with a lot of young artists, so I hear the conscious people. I meet the ones that are making inroads and very much invoking what happened in the 20th century. So there's still pockets of people who are very mindful of conditions in our community. And even when you listen to hip hop, and back to when we were talking about the #1 genre, a lot of hip hop deals with the conditions in our community. I mean, think about it. We're dealing with young people today. I feel bad sometimes for young people today because look at what they're dealing with. They're dealing with open murder, stuff that we dealt with as well, I might add. And it was really, really worse back in the day, but it's still going on, where here you have a woman in her house watching television and the police storm in and kill her, shoot her multiple times. She wasn't committing a crime. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was in her house. Children walking down the street, eating Skittles, shot, killed by the police. So this generation of young people, and because we all have cameras now on our phones, most of us have phones, it's being more documented. We are seeing the abuse. We are seeing the criminality of the injustice system. And so young people are articulating this in the music that they are creating. They're talking about Black Lives Matters. They're talking about the Me Too movement. They're writing songs and they're addressing the issues of now. But as I referenced earlier, as adults, we tend not to listen to the hip hop music. We're not listening to that kind of music. I'm still listening to Tony Bennett and Nat King Cole. And I listen to everything, but there are artists that are articulating consciousness, much like happened with Gamble and Huff and Tom Bell. I was listening to People Make the World Go Round the other day. Tom Bell, Linda Creed, great songwriters. And that song, you put it on right now, trash men didn't pick up the trash today. Oh, why? Because they want more pay. And that's still going on?
It is.
Our trash engineers underpaid, woefully underpaid. Listen, every week when they come pick up my trash, I want to run outside and hug them. I want to make no, seriously, imagine.
I always wave to them. I thank them. Yeah.
Right? If you didn't have trash pickup for a couple weeks, what would happen?
Right.
We take these things for granted in America, and we just take these things for granted. So I know I'm all over the place, but the bottom line is that this generation of creatives, there are people who are making consciousness, raising music, and documenting what is going on in our communities, whether it be crime, drugs, a myriad of things that go on in our community. It's being discussed and documented in the music.
You bring up a very good point, because one of the things I was going to ask was, to talk a little bit about radio today versus radio yesterday, but you kind of answered the question, because a lot of times I'm 61, so a lot of people.
You're young.
Yeah, well, I'm in an organization where I'm like the kid. Everybody's like 70, 77, 80, and they treat me like the kid. So I'm the guy that has to do everything, because I'm the young one. But nonetheless, it's funny because we'll listen to the legacy songs, particularly online, and you lock yourself into that, and you ask the question, well, they don't make music like this anymore. We're all the new artists. You're just not listening to them. You get tunnel vision. I remember when I was 20 years old, working at Pratt & Whitney here in East Hartford, and there were guys then walking around with like 50s style with the pompadour and stuff. And these guys were older. In my mind, it's like they were stuck in time. But eventually, you become those guys.
Right.
And they were listening to the bebop and all of that kind of stuff, and they had the old cars on their toolboxes. And now that's us. We listen to the songs that we were familiar with and grew up with. And we're not listening to the artists like Common, and you'll even hear derogatory comments from older people saying, well, I don't understand the music. Well, first of all, you haven't listened to the music.
There you go.
You haven't listened to the music.
That's the point I was making. We're older, so we kind of got, we stick with what's most familiar, what we're comfortable with, and oftentimes denigrate what the younger generation is doing instead of looking at it and listening to it and saying, okay, and not be so critical of young people. We were once young, and our elders, some of them may have been, confused about our choices, what we were doing. I don't know if you've seen the great film called Summer of Soul. Have either of you seen that film?
I have not.
No, I have not neither.
I'm insisting that you see it, and I would like to encourage our audience to see it. It is a documentary about a festival that took place in my community in 1969. It was a festival, a free festival that attracted over 250,000 plus Black folks in Mount Morris Park in Harlem. And this documentary film is directed by Questlove, Amir Thompson of The Roots, the drummer, the producer, the cultural historian of Black music and culture in particular. You've got to see this film. It documents, first of all, the change of, you're talking about the 60s now. So you figure there was a period of time in the 60s where folks were still pressing the hair, the pompadours and all that stuff that you're talking about.
Afro.
That happened. And then the afros came in. Exactly.
The blowout kit, right?
Blowout kit. That's right, girl. That's right. We were sporting dashikis, and we were embracing Africa, and we were embracing our natural hair patterns. And anyway, every generation has its things, every generation. But as we get older, we tend to look at younger people with disdain sometimes, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be engaging with young people, asking them what they're thinking and feeling, to better understand we're sharing this planet and this space together. We should do our best to communicate and overstand one another. We don't always have to agree.
Yes.
But we should be having dialogue with one another about what we like, what we dislike, what we represent, what we want, and how we can coexist peacefully on this planet and respect each other.
Well, Dyana, that's a great way. Actually, we are just about out of time. Believe
I'm sorry,
it or not.
she's leaving us.
Well,
I feel like I could just listen to her all. She's like, to me, I'm listening to her. And I'm listening to our history musically, socially, culturally, and it's like having a cup of coffee with a friend that I've known forever, and I'm just going through the time with you.
Let's have a part 2 then. Maybe that's a great one. You can't get everything in one show, so if she has the time or the interest in the future, we can definitely invite her back for a part 2 segment. Maybe a great way to start 2022 off.
Yeah.
June Black Music Month. We can resume this conversation during June Black Music Month.
That gives me a lot of time to go into my archives with my mother and see what goodies she has. I'm sure she's got something about the Summer of Soul and all that good stuff. So it gives me time to get in the attic.
And to your mother, and those jets and those ebonies that your mother's been collecting are valuable.
Oh,
I purchased the book. There is a book that is a compilation of ebony and jets.
Yes,
it's sitting in my living room.
Yeah, she's got she's got the ones that are the small ones from the beginning.
They're valuable.
Yes, I'm holding on to them forever.
Yeah, she's got a wonderful collection.
Yes.
You have a wonderful
I
collection.
sure do.
Your
Thank
family
you.
does.
Yes.
I want to thank you all because it's been an honor and a privilege. Shout out to your audience, to all of you, because first of all, I love your thoughtful questions. Thank you for being able to discuss NAMAM, the National Museum of African American Music.org.com. You can go to you can peek and see some of our exhibitions. Our galleries are full of, if you love Black music and her story and his story, you'll see a lot of that at the National Museum of African American Music when you can travel to Nashville safely, because we are still in the pandemic. And thank you for you celebrating members of our community, each of you that are making a difference in our lives, and I'm honored to be one of them. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll be doing a Facebook post about today's interview, and I'll also put in a plug for the National Museum of African American History, and where they can get, our viewers can get additional information. Oh, sorry, music. National
yeah,
music.
We get confused with the one in DC.
I'm sorry. I was thinking music, but it came out. Sorry. It's all good, though.
All right.
All good. Stay blessed, stay productive and positive. Y'all are doing a great job super serving our community. Thank you.
Wow,
thank you for taking time out of your schedule. We'll talk to you soon. God bless you.
Okay.
June, Black Music Month.
Amen.
Yay,
right.
amen. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, folks.
Peace.
Bye.
Stick and stay. We'll be right back. Morning Talk. I'm your host, J. Stan McCauley, with the champions of talk. We will pick it up on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Every bad political decision is made by a politician elected to office. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, just remember this. There are people sitting with politicians in a back room making deals about your future, making policies about your children, making decisions about your neighborhood. To them, you are just a vote. You are not their charity. You are not their cause. You are just a vote. Elections have consequences, and if you don't vote, you are actually voting to keep these people in power to work against you. Now, more than ever, you need to make your vote count. Declare your independence from the plantation of party politics and free your political mind.
Hello, my name is Damari Bournes, and I am a member of Hartford Communities That Care Youth Leadership Academy and a member of the Education Work Group. For the past 27 weeks, we have been examining the intersections between education, poverty, violence, and trauma, and to develop the following policy and program recommendations. 1. Address the lack of funding that results in limited academic offerings such as AP classes and college courses taken while in high school. 2. Correct the shortage of extracurricular and sports opportunities and repair and maintain facilities so they send the right message to children about the importance of education. 3. Recruit teachers of color and teach the history of institutional racism. 4. Support bullying, prevention, and trauma support programs. 5. Stop the closing of schools and libraries. Thank you for your time, and I hope you can support our recommendations.
Welcome back. Morning Talk. I'm your host, J. Stan McCauley. With the champions of talk this morning, we've got Vicky Fennell and Jonathan Small with us. Ralph the Squirrel on point. He's been reassigned to sit to the state capitol. He's looking over there at Governor Lamont.
Really, guys, I'm just trying to keep you safe.
That's what he says. All right. You know, he only has the authority to do mandates in the executive branch. Only the executive branch. So the legislative branch and the judicial branch, he's not the boss. He's not the boss of them.
No, he's not.
Only the executive branch employees. So that mandate extends to the executive branch of state government. The news media tends to leave out some of those little things in the beginning.
Yeah.
And make it sound bigger than it is. More of an impact that it is, until folks aren't really participating. Then they minimize the number of people that aren't. By, well, he's only in charge of. You gotta love this stuff. Great interview.
Oh, very much so.
Well, I think sometime I haven't really heard of her, but to be honest, I guess she's kind of more. I'm talking about Dyana Williams, maybe behind the scenes. I have seen some of her videos.
Yeah, a lot of the heavy hitters you won't hear about.
Right.
Because she's she's behind the scenes, like a lot of producers and executives.
Right.
You don't hear a lot of the executives, but they're like owners of radio stations and CEOs of companies and organizations. You don't really hear about them because they're not celebrities.
Yes.
You hear about celebrities in any genre: the celebrity CEO, the celebrity chef, the celebrity, casino owner, the celebrity politicians, even the celebrity football players. Most people don't know all the members of the team.
Right.
They know like the quarterback. They know the team, the quarterback, and some of the star players. But there's a whole lot of people involved in a team.
Well, even yesterday, man, I had posted on Facebook, and I'm a Cowboy fan, that the defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, really deserves a lot of credit for the defensive side of the football. You will hear about the head coach. Bill Belichick used to be a defensive coordinator with the Giants. But people might remember hearing about Bill Parcells, when they won the Super Bowls, when they beat Denver. So some key positions, some key people, you don't always hear or see about, see them or hear about them. They name don't get out in the forefront. But you're going to hear the head coach. You're going to hear the superstar players. Tom Brady is all over the media. Every NFL game.
Yeah, if all you saw was the media, you would think that Tom Brady is football.
It's football. Yeah. They love it too. Obviously, he brings a lot of viewership.
Yeah, I mean,
But I think Dyana Williams brought a lot to the table this morning. A lot of insight. With black musicians, the credit that they deserve. I was trying to debate what particular title I wanted to classify the show. So we kind of branched into many different areas beyond just the impact of black music. And it seems like to me, she has a consciousness about her with the activism. She mentioned that she goes and lobbies to Capitol Hill, or she has done that in the past. So sometimes you may take things for granted. You are in the music business and everything is going fine, but you don't realize the struggles that it took to really put everything where it needs to be And even the Grammys. I mean, the Grammys is like the biggest award. And she said she was on the.
She's a voting member.
A voting member of
past president of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I got the impression she was saying past president of the Philadelphia. I don't know how the Grammys are set up, whether they're chapters or regions or, you know, or maybe she's on the governing board of the big Grammys. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes.
But she was a voting member.
Yeah, she said.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But she was a voting member, she mentioned, on the Grammys. So that's huge when you think of the Grammys. Now, I did ask her about the differences between, let's say, the Soul Train Awards or the BET Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when you win a Grammy, you know, you're on your way if you have not already.
Grammy's the big one.
The big one, right.
That's the big one.
And
the Grammy, I think the Grammy is the difference between being asked out on a date and someone proposing.
Right. But even being nominated, I think, for a Grammy does give you some level of influence, too. It's not the same as winning it, obviously. If you win the Grammy, that's the ultimate. But if you're nominated for Grammy, don't take that for granted. Even like you mentioned when you run for mayor, you know, don't look at, well, you lost. You know, you put up a good fight. You was in the fight.
Yeah. You know, some people leverage that, you know, former mayoral candidate. Well, you know.
Presidential candidate. You run for president. You know, you don't win, but you run. It was
Jesse Jackson was a former presidential candidate.
Right. 1984, 1988.
Yeah.
And he did a lot better in 1988 than he did in 1984. He had a strong campaign. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't a close. He didn't get nominated for the Democratic nomination, but
he sure shook things up, baby.
He did, yes. But he came a lot stronger and a lot closer in 1988, and then Barack Obama at first.
Actually, it was Shirley Chisholm that really opened the door for all of them. As far as the presidential runs. So, you know, I don't think Shirley gets enough credit for that. But, you know, each one, you know, she opened the door and others came through.
Right.
You know, so.
But I guess the key again, Stan, is getting involved, you know, at some capacity.
Yeah, being involved. A lot of people, there's a whole lot of people involved in doing great things who you may not ever hear about. Because, you know, most people doing stuff you don't even know who they are. They're not in the spotlight. Many would not like being in the spotlight if the spotlight were on them. But there's all kinds of people doing all kinds of great things, and you just don't hear about it. That's
right. And then you got to stay abreast too, and you got to be somewhat seeking certain areas too. Like she mentioned with music, Common and other people, you don't hear about it. But what I was really going to ask, and I didn't get a chance to ask, and not so much blaming the artists, but maybe the record labels, the radio stations don't want to play certain music. It's not always that simple to get your sound on the airwaves.
Difficult.
Very difficult.
Very difficult.
Right.
Particularly with your stuff gets out much easier now. Well, let me rephrase that. It's easier for you to put your stuff it's easier to have a venue where your stuff could be heard through the internet. It doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to listen to it or find it. You know, so you could produce an album, put it up on CD Baby or, you know, one of the streaming platforms. But that doesn't mean that anyone's going to, like, now that you're there, people automatically going to start listening to you. Radio there's only so much time in a day, you know, and if they're playing the top 40 hits, you know, who determines what those top 40 hits are, and how do you break in? You got to have someone to shepherd your music around. It was very, very difficult in those early days. It's a lot easier now. But I think what's easier now are for artists who have a fairly good following. Mm-hmm. They can break out much easier than they used to be.
Social media, yeah.
Because of social media. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, if you don't have a social media presence, the record labels don't even want to be bothered with you.
Yeah. So that's the new era that we're in, obviously, and that's why it's really important. Mm-hmm. You know, she asked me, Dyana, how do I listen to my music? You know, when I listen, and I told her basically online and the radio too. It's like a combination of both. You know, I turn on the radio, turn different stations, but then I go online too and listen to certain songs. It's just a different era that you're in. I can't tell the last when I bought a record, or tape or CD. I can't even tell you.
I can't think of the last time I bought a record. The records I had were in my storage bin many, many years ago when when they auctioned off all my stuff.
Oh, okay.
So they're all gone, what records I had. I haven't bought a record or a CD since I can
remember. It's a long
I think the last CD or the last music I paid for, I think was Ronnie Song's Breaking the Rules. That's the last piece. That's the last musical thing I bought. Downloaded that. It's challenging because you can listen to everything on YouTube.
Right.
And so there's no need to really buy it because it's there.
It's there.
You search the song and it's there.
To it. Exactly.
Or on online with the artificial intelligence. That's how I listen. And I listen to like bossa nova music. So, I just tell the thing. Alexa, continue.
Resuming Amazon Music.
1, 2, 3. Nice.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm listening to in my office when I'm in here typing and working and talking on the phone. Alexa, stop.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
So that's what I listen to. And so I don't know what's playing elsewhere and I think that's the big thing. You listen to the 60s music, country, your own private playlist, and people get trapped in a very narrow band of tones or what they're listening to. Because, music sets your mind. If you listen to the militant music, you become militant. If you listen to...
I've been militant. I didn't listen to any music, so I don't know.
I don't know.
Woo, it's warm in here.
Yeah, I mean, you got different ways that you listen. I mean, I don't even use the CD player that I have in the car. I just don't need it. I just listen to it on the radio. I can download the music. I mean, I think somebody gave me a few CDs and then I listened to it for a while. But it's just a different technology era that we are in today, how people listen to music. So I guess the record sales, it's not important how many. I mean, it might be important how many records that you sell, but we've had people on in the past, and they mentioned that it's not that. The business today is not looked at if you sell how many records like it did in the past. If you had like a gold record, platinum record, I guess it's still good if you sell 10 million copies, but I don't know if you make your money just on the record sales like you used to.
Let me unmute myself. I don't know what the standard is now, whether it's number of streams.
Could be.
I'm not that familiar with that, with it like I'm not deep involved anymore like I used to be once upon a time. So things have changed a lot. I do know that artists have fought diligently and very hard to maintain revenue from their work. They work hard You know, artists work hard, and then producers who make the artists actually sound good. You know, and engineers, the people who put the album together.
Right.
Because the album is constructed. It's crafted, you know, so that it has a perfect sound. It's flawless at the you know, at that level. And the people who actually do that work are less recognized, and they recognize more often the artist in front of, you know, the head, you know, the name, the singer, or whatever the case is, and rightfully so. At the end of the day, they're the product. They're the one that's generating the revenue for everybody else. But it's really a team effort. A lot of times people just they don't get the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, that engineer title that you mentioned, I just thought about, I can't remember the person's name, but Michael Jackson's Thriller album, the engineer, maybe you can Google it. I think his name starts as a Greg. He has done an excellent job, and he's a real heavyweight hitter. But I don't even pay attention to the engineer. I pay attention to the artist, the producer, the songwriter. But you just mentioned the engineer plays a critical role too in putting together a record or album.
Yeah, it's like the cinematographers and the lighting directors and all of the people in visual mediums that create the look. You know, everybody's waiting for Bond to come out for a year and a half. It's premiered in other parts of the world, but it'll premiere on Friday in the United States, followed by Dune, followed by The Matrix, and then a Star Wars spinoff, the Book of Boba Fett. So there's a lot of good action, science fiction type stuff coming out. The only reason I mention that is because, of course, those people are not in space. They're not flying around. They aren't doing, that's not, everything is, it's created to look that way. And so in music, you just hear. You hear the flawlessness. And I guess people in time believe that that's actually the way the artists sound. You know, that's actually the way they harmonize with the music. There's a whole science to the recording arts. And if it is not done, if you heard what they really sound like,
right,
and how it's put together, you would understand why you need, you know, the engineer and producer make or break you. And that's why some artists will only work with certain producers, because they won't sound right.
Well, you listen to an artist on the radio, or you buy the album and then they do a live version. Like Arsenio Hall would always used to make the artist sing. He didn't lip sync. You would have to actually, if you was to be a guest on the Arsenio Hall show,
you
would sing live, and it sounds different. They don't sound the same way that they sound on the album. I mean, the music is the exact same sound, a song, but the voice don't sound quite as sharp and precise as it does on the album or the record as it do when you do a live version. It's more of a challenge, I think, to do a live show. I guess that's why they make money too when you do a live concert or a live artist. It's more work involved to do. I guess lip syncing is a little bit more easier.
Oh, it's easier if you don't get off track and you got a good team running the music and all that other kind of stuff. But I was in the studio. I had the privilege of being in the studio for a week with Ronnie Song and recently, and he was making mention that there's I think he said it's only 2 or 3 artists that could come in and knock it out.
Mm-hmm.
Do 2 takes and tell them whatever one you think was the best.
Right.
And I won't mention the name of those artists because he's worked with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there are only 2. I think he said there's only 2. And he told me who they were. Other than that, folk need work. And it takes, you're in the studio forever.
Right. Well, you remember the big controversy with Milli Vanilli, was that group that Vanilli that they lip sync. They didn't even, the people who actually made the record.
Also, New Kids on the Block. I think that happened here in Hartford, in Connecticut, at one of the fairgrounds. The track got jammed up.
Oh man.
Okay.
Milli Vanilli, yeah.
That was a big controversy, though.
Big controversy. Because people think that they're watching the artist perform in the real. And they're not sometimes. Sometimes they're lip syncing to their album, or there's a, just a kind of over sync type thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Soul Train was known for lip syncing. If you came as a guest or artist on Soul Train, you would always lip sync.
That's semi-understandable.
Okay.
Because, of course, the band isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so and it's a television production. And people are dancing.
Right, dancing too.
To the song that they know. A live performance is always going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Always. It's always going to sound a little bit different.
Right.
So if it's live, then you have to have... If it's a live performance all the way around, then you need some really good people. You get the best of the best. Sound engineers, crew, stage managers. It's a serious business.
Yeah.
As a consumer, you just hear your favorite sound,
Right.
and you really have no idea what goes into it. But it's not. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. It's
not
very
glamorous.
It's not glamorous at all. It's a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of rehearsal, a lot of practice, and there's a lot that could go wrong.
And does go wrong.
And does. You just don't. They're so good that you just don't know.
Right.
Well, give Arsenio Hall a lot of credit. Whether he deserves the credit or not for making the artists go live. And
you need a good band.
A good band too. Yeah.
Top flight musicians.
To put everything together with that. Well, it's a tremendous business, man. The music industry.
It's a business.
It's a business.
It's a business, and there's, as she mentioned, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. The entertainment industry.
Yeah, it's probably more easier to get into today, but it's just so competitiveness too. The whole media, we talked about this in the past, it's more easier with social media to get in front of the camera than it was in the past. But not so easy neither though. Don't take that for granted. Easier.
It's easier. You can have a presence in social media if you have a phone.
Right.
And actually, for people like me, it's a godsend because eventually folk realize they need a professional.
That's true, Stan.
Because they think it's easy.
Right.
No.
And it isn't. It's not easy, and you need to know what you're doing. You could paint or you could hire someone to paint. Yeah. You realize quickly once you start painting that this isn't easy. The painter comes in because that's what they do. They've got best practices. They understand how to do this. They understand that, doing it right. And they know exactly how long it's going to take to paint a particular room. They're not going to get anything on your carpet or your.
They come with their equipment.
They have
the
equipment.
Different kinds of paint.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you up there sanding with a piece of sandpaper, and they got a machine that pulls in all of the dust as they're sanding, and they're out, gone.
I had an uncle that used to do that sort of work, and oh my goodness, he had his truck, and he came right in, knew exactly what to do, and people were like, wow. Yeah.
And you can look at it and tell the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, the quality of the work.
Yeah.
That's how he got started, and it started with him going out and, you know, sort of watching with someone, working with someone. Then he went out on his own, and, you know, he worked on a lot of the hotels in Miami Beach before they were what we see now. But it started out as a word of mouth thing, and once they saw what he could do, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can get in front of a camera, use your phone, but there's a lot of things that make a good broadcast. Framing, lighting, sound. It's an audio-visual medium. Your sound has to be correct, and the lighting has to be correct. And attention to detail, things in your background. It's a two-dimensional medium, so the trick is to make it look three-dimensional, because your television screen is flat.
Right.
There is no depth to it, so you have to create this sense of depth, and there's different ways that you do that. And sometimes people stumble into it not knowing, and other times it's very intentional. But there are rules to making a good broadcast. And if you follow those rules, then you can use your phone. A lot of people just don't know what they are. Like, it's funny, you watch, now believe it or not, your Zoom meeting is a broadcast. And so as I always tell people, you know, the more you are doing your business by Zoom, the more your presence on Zoom matters. So if your business is by Zoom, don't put your name up, put your face up. Because a name has no presence. There's no personality to the name. All right? But the people in the call whose face you see, they're the ones everybody's looking at. And they are going to rise to the top when it comes to raises and promotions and things like that, because they're building relationships with key people that matter.
Right.
And you don't want to be seen, so you aren't. You're present, but you're not seen. And since it's something that matters, how you look on Zoom is important. Because I'll see Zoom pictures that look like this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's not professional.
Does it look professional to you? Would you hang a picture on your wall that look like that?
Yeah. It's like I mentioned.
Would you put this picture on your wall? Your head way down here?
No, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, so but people aren't thinking. They're just on the Zoom, so they don't. It's just on. They're not concerned about what they look like. They should be, but they aren't.
No, they aren't.
So it looks like this, and it could look better. So make sure that the headroom is right. So bring the top of your laptop down. Okay. Make sure that there's good sound, so people can hear you, and they can hear the intonations of your voice. Okay. And it doesn't sound distant.
That's important. Yeah.
That's real important. You want to sound present, like you're in the room with them. And then make sure that the shot is framed up nicely. All right. And, couple network anchor people broadcasting from home could learn some basic camera. Because they're not camera people.
I was surprised at that, too.
They're not camera people. They're in front of camera people.
Talent,
and they're talent.
Yes.
and they don't do the lighting, and they don't do the sound, and they don't do the picture, so they don't know. They always depend on the director or whoever, the camera people, to do that for them.
Stage manager, yeah.
And so if they're at home, they think, and if no one the problem is less them and more their
handlers.
Yeah. You know, the engineers or the director should send someone to the house, set up a little lighting place where you can look like you're, you know, halfway decent. But, you know.
But you're absolutely right. I did my first Zoom with a customer. When was that? Last month.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. But I followed everything that you said, which is have good lighting. And I just use a very good light without a lampshade. Put it in front of me. And it was great. It was absolutely great. It came out. I said, wow, this really works. And then I could see it. So, you know, I could make the adjustment, you know, and it really wasn't difficult. And I had a great time with it.
Yep. So, like, if you go into a TV studio, you'll see tens of lights, sometimes hundreds. There's a lighting grid, and the grid is all along the top. And the lighting grids, the purpose is to give you 3 points of light for everything that's going to be on camera, as a general rule. So your first point of light is your key light. That's my key light. All right. So if I block the key light, there's still light on me. So you have to have light from behind you. So you have a key light. This is the fill light. This light gets rid of the shadows caused by the key light. One should be at 45 degrees, the other one at 30 degrees, and then your backlight.
Right.
You guys have backlight. Vicky doesn't have good backlighting because she's sitting too far back. But if she would come forward and I would put that light back more, the light would be more behind her like it should be to provide what appears to be space between me and the wall. Without backlight, you look like you're part of the wall.
Am I part of the wall now?
No.
I'm part of the scenery with the plant.
No.
Everything.
Yeah. There's enough back there to give the sense that there's some light behind you and casts a little bit of a shadow, which gives the look like you're not present. So it creates an effect that's acceptable, but not necessarily perfect, you know. But it's social media. It's not broadcast. But you know, there's different levels of what's good. It's consumer, industrial, broadcast. You know, motion pictures.
Yeah.
And then makeup is important.
Very much so.
Vicky is into makeup. She's a makeup salesperson and everything. Does makeup. Max Factor made his mark doing movie makeup. Because as any woman will tell you, lighting changes the color of the makeup you're wearing.
Yes.
So when you go out at night, depending upon where you're going to be, the color of your eyeshadow, lipstick, rouge, and all that other kind of stuff won't be the same when you get to the club as it looks in your bathroom with the fluorescent lights.
No, you have to. It's dramatic. You have to go dramatic. I just reapplied some lip color while I was sitting here. You know,
if you all could see Vicky, she's like constant in makeup mode.
I realized I didn't put any powder to take the shine away, but even the powders that I use will sometimes be different. And I noticed that when I use them, there's a high definition one that I always use for TV. I didn't put that on this morning because I was rushing. So hence you see the little bit of a shine there. But you have to do things a little bit differently when you're on camera. I remember I was talking with a newswoman out of New York once, And I said, wow, your makeup is terrific. What are you using? And she told me she was using Mac Studio Fix. And I said, wow, interesting. She said a lot of the TV people, women tend to use it. And I said, oh, interesting. She said it's better for TV and, theater grade type. I said, oh, very interesting. So I had to have some photographs taken for a headshot. And I used the Studio Fix for that purpose, and the photograph came out great. So there was something, there's different grades, and I said, well, this is terrific. I said, I rep a line, but I said, there are other lines out there that are for different, things, different industries, I guess, professions. But I am wearing my Mary Kay this morning, so and she does a great job in terms of even for TV makeup. I mean, I've been doing this. Covers up everything pretty good, looks good.
Yeah, makeup is that's a serious.
Stan, TV production is expensive, and I just thought about something. When you ran for mayor, you didn't do any TV commercials comparable to Mayor Luke Bronin. Was it just because of the costs? I know I
did them. They just didn't air.
They didn't air? Oh, so you did do a commercial. Okay. Well, why your commercial?
Air at
well,
media time is
only place I could run them was on social media. I don't TV time is expensive.
That's what I was trying to ask you. I mean, television.
Well, that's where
when
you're working with a political candidate, that's where the fundraising.
Yeah.
That's where the fundraising is critical, because you have to pay staff, you have to buy media time. There's collateral, materials that have to be produced. So you have to have a big budget. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. It never used to be like that, but and I think if we go back many, many years and you look at how people ran for office, it was different. They used the little postcards, and they weren't necessarily the slick ads that we see now. This is something that's new, because all the media people now are involved in this whole thing now. So
it's expensive. It's very expensive. You have to buy time.
Right.
And this is where it gets sticky. It gets real sticky, and it gets actually quite ugly.
Yeah.
Because it's a slippery road.
That's right.
If you are in a town like Hartford, for instance, and there are radio stations and TV stations, all right, and one major newspaper,
right,
and I roll in, and let's say I do a $50,000 print contract. I'm going to put $50,000 of ads in your paper. I am here to tell you that changes how the paper perceives you. Because you're more than just a candidate, you're a client. And you're a revenue stream.
Right.
With the potential of spending more. Same thing happens with television. So I always say you can't be the news if you're reporting the news. It's a fine line.
Yeah. So
you can't become the news item and report the news item. So it's there's a perceived firewall between the front, between sales and the news department. But if the in the newspaper and television and radio industry, sales trumps everybody, because that's what you're in the business for. You're in business to sell airtime. That's how everybody makes their money.
Right.
So if you're covering a story that is counterproductive to the bottom line, we're in business now. We want to give people some news, but let's remember now and bite the hand that feeds us. So there's deference given.
Right.
To a person. So if the network wants to do a debate, and the major donor, the major player in the network contributing to money, says, I don't want to be in a debate with that person, they're not going to tell them no. Well, we're going to do the debate, and I'll put my ad somewhere else.
Yeah.
It gets ugly real quick.
It's an extortion type of, if you don't do it my way, then I'm not participating. Well, we saw that
Right.
even at the presidential level with Reagan. Remember that famous exchange he had with the microphone, and he blew up on somebody, and he says, "I'm paying for this microphone, but you tell me how to do things." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
But that's true.
He's absolutely right.
When the client, if you take someone on as a client, they're like children. And I don't mean that they're immature, acting like children. You have
sometimes they do.
You have an obligation to treat them as a dependency. Mm-hmm. They are dependent on you to provide the service for which you've been contracted for. Otherwise, they wouldn't hire you. If they could do it themselves, believe me, they wouldn't hire you because it costs money.
Right.
They don't have the level of expertise. So if I get someone to come in here and cut a hole in the ceiling and put a spiral staircase up to my bedroom, so when I come into the studio, I come down the spiral staircase. Mm-hmm. I don't have the expertise to do that. Mm-hmm. So I hire somebody. And so they will do what I want them to do because I'm paying them to do that. And the same thing, if you happen to be the candidate, you're still a client. And you're the client first and the candidate second.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So let's say you drop $500,000 or $700,000 on advertising. Well, once I spend, let's say I spend $20,000 with the little local newspapers. I'll do $5,000. I'll do $5,000 with all the local papers. $10,000 with the little local radio stations. Do $50,000. I'll do $100,000 with the networks. And then I let everybody know I'm spending $700,000 on this on my ad drops alone. Cable television, broadcast, radio, news. Now everyone knows that money is out there. Just the idea that it's out there and we can get a piece of it means that I want the money, so I'm going to start treating the candidate differently. It's human nature. People can say they are objective if they want.
They're not objective.
They're not.
It's crap.
Mm-hmm. They're not, because the honesty is that people are very, very opinionated. They're very, they have alliances. There's people that they like more than people that they don't like, and that is just real. But one thing everybody likes is a paycheck.
Yeah,
that's right.
And so if you are in business, you're in business. Mm. So you become a professional,
right? And
that will trump everything else. The bottom line. So you ask any on-air talent that talks in a negative way about clients who are running commercials on the air. Mm-hmm. So you're not ever going to hear NBC talk negatively about a GE engine on an airplane that crashed.
Yeah.
Well, what they do is they do the disclaimer up front. They say, GE is the parent company of NBC, but they don't say anything critical.
They won't say anything critical, but let a Pratt & Whitney powered airplane crash.
Oh.
Pratt & Whitney powered 747 crashed off the island in the Canary. In the Canary Islands, there were 747 powered Pratt & Whitney powered 747 planes crashed in the Canary Islands on NBC.
Yeah.
Because, of course, it dogs their competition's engine.
Right.
Right.
And the news isn't done in an abstract. It's written.
Mm-hmm.
The news is written. It's scripted. Sure. Someone, they're reading what was scripted. If the anchor has risen to the stature or level where they can write their own news, you better believe someone is looking at the news they write.
Right.
So the edit, whoever the person in charge is, will look at the news. Like an editor for a newspaper, there's editors and people who make those decisions at TV news. Nothing is by accident. Nothing is by accident. Nothing.
Yeah.
You see a black guy wearing a hat, can't speak English properly, who makes it on the news. That's not by accident.
Of course not.
Okay.
It's not by, yo man, niggas was beefing up on the thing. And, you know, I don't know what it was, but you know, he came out of nowhere, speeding around the corner, and then he hit the nigga, right?
Yeah.
So you know that's not by accident that gets to air.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was a roll in. It was edited. The package went out. Someone approved it, and it went on.
Right.
Now they also interviewed the doctor. He's black.
Mm-hmm.
Gentleman drove down the street and he lost control of the car and it veered off trying to miss the.
That is something that they have started to do lately.
He hit the woman and unfortunately I think she expired. And they don't put him on because
No, they will never put him.
They're not gonna put him on.
No, because he makes the appearance, good appearance. He's educated. He's well spoken. They're not going to show that. They always want to show us at our worst.
Right.
Let's be honest.
That's why black media is important.
Absolutely.
And you see, and even with our Latino brothers and sisters, I mean, you're seeing it with how they show them. Mm-hmm. You're not seeing. In fact, I just had this conversation on Facebook. How, if you notice, the networks we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, okay? Mm-hmm. And all we're seeing about Hispanic Heritage Month is cuisine.
Right.
Now, and I said, we're really not learning about the accomplishments of Latino people. And I'm saying, well, I really believe that they contributed more than cuisine to the culture here of the United States of America, just as like African Americans have contributed more than just food and to the culture. There's a whole mechanism here that we need to be educated and enlightened about. And so I was looking on Facebook, and they were talking about the local. There's a local. The local people here that we know about in Hartford. And I said, that's what I was looking for. I was looking to learn about, who was the first Latino police officer, who's the first Latino judge. I mean, who are the people? That's what Hispanic heritage, as well as Black History Month, is supposed to be about, or Asian American Pacific Islander. Mm-hmm. My thing with the news media, if you don't know how to do something, then don't take it on or get people in there to assist you with this than to just say we're celebrating the month. Well, yeah, you're celebrating the month, but the viewer should be educated and enlightened by the contributions of the specific group that's being featured in that month. And if you don't know, then ask.
Yeah. Well, so that's again why having black.
That's why we have to have
important.
the. I am convinced that we have to have, each group has to have their own media, or forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it's not going to be shown. Then if it's shown, it's half-assed, pardon my French, but that's really what it is.
Well, like I said, everything that comes across television is intentional. It's not that they need to be educated; it's that they've made a conscious decision to show you what they want, and so.
Well, that's it.
It's not a lack of education. It's intentional.
Well, you look at you look at the percentage of the news directors in this country, and you get your answer. Who are they? You get your answer. That now explains. Yeah, why things are shown the way that they're shown.
Right, but what is it? So if all of the white news directors in America were replaced by black news directors, it would take on a marked difference, and then white perspectives would not be.
Well, no, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you would get a more balanced approach. We're not going to annex groups of people. You get a balanced approach. I mean, there was a woman, Paula Madison, who was the news director for many, many years. I am pretty sure that she did not annex out white, or what we could say, white concerns or in the media. She had a balanced approach. That's all I'm saying. A balanced approach.
I think you get the balanced approach by having multiple types of individuals.
Oh, I agree.
Contribute to the end. Because
there's nothing wrong with that.
There's going to be bias in everything. I think bias has to be recognized, included, celebrated, and then diversity comes by having multiple biased points of view. The idea that people are somehow going to be bias neutral is, to me, laughable, because everyone has bias, and the bias comes out. Lou Delgado was here. He said that the term, he was here last Tuesday, the term Latino, Latinx, and Hispanic are highly offensive.
Did he explain what?
And he explained why.
Okay.
Latin means countries that speak Latin.
Right.
Spain was a Latin-speaking country.
Mm-hmm.
He said Puerto Ricans, first and foremost, are not Spanish.
No.
And people in Mexico aren't Spanish. So, but they call them Latin America because they spoke Latin. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they are Spanish speaking. So, people who speak Spanish-speaking people would be probably the better term to use. Latinx, Latino, Hispanic, none of those terms describe.
Chicanos, it's a whole.
None of those terms describe accurately the groups of Spanish-speaking people in Connecticut, according to him.
Right.
So, I say that there's implicit bias, and
so
what we don't know, we don't know, and so you hear it's almost like blacks and Negroes, African Americans.
So what do they want to be? What do the people want to be identified as?
I don't know. I don't identify them as anything. Identify them as Lou.
Right, but
And Luis Delgado, and or the people, because when that comes across, as he would call it, the language of the language and phraseology of the oppressor. So what do they want to be called? That's the same thing people say about black folk.
Yeah, what do we
want to be? Depends on who you ask, what age they are, where they came from, if they have brown skin.
Well, one thing I don't, and I mentioned this earlier, I don't like the term minority though.
Minority is a catch-all phrase for anyone
who's not right.
So it's not just black people that's minorities. It could be any race that has less of the
minorities can be women.
That's true too.
If you're talking about minorities in terms of construction and things along that line,
they've made them minorities. But
women are by no stretch of the imagination a minority. They're the majority on the planet and in the United States.
Right. Well, there's some debate even here in Hartford about, is black people a minority? If you total the population, you have blacks
in the city of Hartford. Blacks are not a minority.
Yeah,
no.
But for some reason, sometimes they get labeled as a minority. I don't know.
You
if it's
said
just
the key word, labeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, that because in the grand scheme of things, when people are talking about folks who are not white in the city of Hartford,
right?
Let me rephrase that. People in the city of Hartford that talk about people who aren't white aren't only talking about Hartfordites. They're talking about nationally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So the context in which one's talking matters.
Well, again, in Connecticut.
But black people is very specific.
Yes.
When the term black people is used, it generally infers people who are descendants of those who were captive.
But
and that is very specific.
Right.
When Donald Trump talked about doing something for black people, it was very clear who and what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that became an immediate threat to the Democratic power structure.
Absolutely,
because if
no
Donald Trump was able to succeed in doing something for black people, a major portion of their base
would be gone.
Yeah, but
he wasn't talking about doing stuff for minorities.
Right.
He's talking about black people, and there's a difference.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see Joe's plan. What did Joe Biden talk about, and what about
equity with the vaccine?
Oh.
Right.
Yes. I didn't hear a plan for urban America. Did you? Maybe I missed that. Maybe he spoke a little bit softly. He talks like this sometimes, so maybe.
He whispered the plan. Well, I don't think he needs. It would be nice if he had a plan. I don't think he necessarily needs a plan. But I bring that up because in terms of black people.
Right. It was
so
very specific. And the fact that it came from a Republican.
Right. I think that, circling back, perspective matters, and the perspective can only really come from someone who is a particular type of person. I cannot give you the perspective of a female.
Right.
I don't care how objective I want to be. I could give you as thinketh a man, which borderlines on a level of arrogance. You as a man think you know anything about being a woman.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. Believe it or not, in campaigns, that's what happens. You have men who are around the candidate who come in and say, well, why don't we get the women to handle, I think if you talk to these women, I wait a minute. Every campaign I've gone in, I said, no, we aren't doing that. This is not happening. Now, if you want to do something geared at women, this is the way that you do it. And you'll have a terrific effect if you do it this way. I said, if you don't do it, I'm not doing it. And ultimately, we did what I suggested. And of course, when you get in a situation like that, other women are like, I think she's right. Let's do it this way. Now, of course, Ben got to back up and say, yeah, okay. But it worked,
Well, women have a perspective. Men have a perspective. Black men have a perspective. Black women have a perspective. White women have a perspective. Spanish-speaking women have a perspective. Asian women have a perspective. Everyone has a perspective. So I like to treat people just people.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
I find that it's better to treat people like human beings.
The golden rule.
And treat them.
The golden rule
like
works
you
every
want
time.
To be treated.
That's right. The golden rule works every time. And I'm always conscious of, I'll ask the specific group. I'll say, I want to just make sure that is this considered offensive? If I, and people will tell you yes or no. I've had people ask me if certain things are offensive, and I will explain yes or no. I think that's fine. Golden rule.
But again, we've come a long way from the titles, from being classified as the N-word to Negro to colored. I guess we're either black or African American today, but you never hear nobody call this person.
Oh, don't forget the coloreds.
Colored. What else did I mention? A colored person.
When somebody said that to me, and they said so and so is colored, and I said, what color? And I said, because you say colored, and now because the way the country is, we have a lot of colored people from different countries.
Right.
What color are you talking about? Well, she's, like you. And I said, she's black, or he or she is African American. Okay, I said, all right.
Well, at one time, colored was the term.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's.
But people who say that,
if the term changes, they're stuck in a time, just like people stuck in the music time.
That's right.
There's a and so you understand, that's where they are. So you have to either you have to go to where they're at or bring them to where you are. But that's where they are. If you look at things now, a good example of that would be he, she, her, hers, identifying. So if you have somebody who's a male who identifies as a female and they want you to address them as she, then you're like, well, I always knew your people as he's, but now you're a she. So, it's that kind of adjustment for people. For folk who used to call them black folks colored. You can't be mad because that's where they are. And, transgender people can't be mad at folk because they still want to call you a he or a she. That's how they've known you forever. So, work with them to bring them along until they get there. That's all. That's how I would approach it. I want to respect folk where they are. Well, if you want to be called a pencil, I could call you pencil. Everyone is unique. Everybody brings something to the table. And if we embrace people for who they are as individuals, as human beings.
Well, I think, again, that's why some people want to move past the slavery era, and I know you might disagree with me when people say who's really benefiting from slavery,
who has been
benefited.
A lot of people have benefited from it.
But
And yeah, I don't think it's something that we can ignore in the country. And I think for, Stan has talked about this whole thing of the Americana concept here, on the planes and, the covered wagons and all that stuff. Yes, that did happen, but we have to be realistic about what happened in this country, how the country was built. And it was built on the backs of slaves. And that's uncomfortable for people, white people in particular, because they say, well, I didn't have anything to do with that. My family came from. Yes, you might not have had anything to do with it, but there are such things as beneficiaries of an insurance policy here. And we have to come to terms with that. It's not about making people feel bad about what happened. If you want to feel bad about it, well, fine. But I think it's about learning about the history here and vowing to do better.
Yeah.
That's really what it's all about. And, I'm not in favor of people in school systems having children act out certain things, as slaves and that sort of thing. No, that's not how you approach it. You approach it by teaching about what happened, the use of documentaries, reading materials so that kids understand what happened, activities that are to educate but not to denigrate people. And I think that's where we have to, there's been enough denigration to go around. I think we have to educate, uplift, and vow to do better. So that's my philosophy on that whole thing.
Well, there's nothing wrong with knowing your history.
Yes.
That's important. And if Black history should be band-aided in the school curriculum, which I don't think it has been.
It is.
It is. So Black history is
along with
The
Puerto Rican and Latin.
The problem with that is that there's no uniform curriculum. So
Right.
if we have to mandate it, then
Now in New
depending
Jersey,
upon where it is taught,
Yeah.
you're not going to get what you may think you're
Yeah.
getting.
right.
When
Now-
you make mandates and make people do stuff that if without the mandate they would not do.
Right.
Well, in New Jersey,
And,
they did they had a commission, state commission that came up with developing the curriculum. I was hoping that, I don't know what the state of Connecticut is doing, but I'd like to think that they would be doing something on par with that, to bring in the academic experts who have the knowledge to be able to pull together the curriculum, because you can't have willy-nilly ragtag stuff. It's got to be uniform, and it's got to be by people who are experts, academic experts, to be able to create something like this that can be used throughout the educational system in the state.
Well, see, the education is local, so local government,
But it is funded by the state too.
Well,
Yeah,
so
and the
see,
federal
this
government.
is where you
Again,
get
it
into
gets-
things.
yeah,
This
it
is
gets-
where it gets tight because these mandates. Folk don't like to be told that you got to do something our way or else, and then they bully you if you don't do it. You're not going to get the money. So that happens on whether you're talking about vaccines, whether you're talking about curriculum. I think it would be better if they would just teach history
Right.
in its fullness.
Right.
Because Black folk aren't the only ones got a history here,
Yeah.
and,
Well,
and
no,
it,
no.
it, it,
It's
it,
everybody.
what it does is it creates unnecessary silos that continue to allow folks to be separate.
But then the
which
other
is
piece
what
of that-
in my opinion, what the power brokers want. They want you segregated and separated so you don't ever come together.
But the other piece of that, Stan, has been that the history of us, as well as other people of color, have been ignored in the history books. It's not been taught. And what's been taught has been a false narrative. I told you about my experience where the teacher wanted to just harp on slavery. And finally, I said, in so many words, when I brought my books in, I was basically telling the nun, damn it, we've contributed more than just slavery here, and get a grip. Here it is. Here it is.
Did it have a positive result?
It absolutely had a positive result.
That's how change happens. Because you said something, it caused her to think differently, and they adjusted accordingly. I think it's better when that happens organically than when it happens, well, I want you to do this a particular way, and I'm only going to be satisfied when you're doing what I want. But there's always every coin has another side. The two sides are never going to agree. And it's been my observation, when you force people to do something they don't want to do, they'll find a way around it, or they'll do subterfuge. I mean, if the status quo doesn't want to teach it, then you're not going to make them do it. You're not going to make them do it. And I think we get comfortable thinking because we're going to make them do it, now what they're going to do is all right. Then we walk away and expect it to be okay and all right. I think it's always incumbent upon local people to be involved in their boards of education and their schools, so that they are making sure that the curriculum is what it should be. Because if you were Asian American, Asians had a contribution. Yes. And that the native people of this land, their history is missing from everybody.
Yes, right.
So,
and if
an
it's
accurate portrayal of history is what should be taught. But whoever is in control and whoever is in power, they'll use all the apparatus of that power to indoctrinate the society in the way that best benefits them.
Well, we see
and it
that.
won't matter who's in power. Black folk, Chinese folk, Japanese folk, Asian folk. This is a problem that's worldwide. If it's an all black people, that tribe over there is going to enforce its will on that tribe, even though they're both brown skin, right? Or in the Middle East, where you've got deep tribal loyalties, and it's all the same people, but
can't we all just get along?
No, we can't all just get along.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth.
He asked the question. Rodney King asked that question. He was absolutely right.
They was beating him.
That's right. But can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
Well, that was after the beating. But I mean,
well,
the beating shouldn't have happened in the first place.
That's for certain.
That's it. People acting out their aggressions and then wearing a police uniform, disgracing the badge. Yeah. I take that very personally in my house. And there's great officers out there, and the actions of a few have tainted the entire group, and that should not be. So, and that's in a lot of areas. It's just not law enforcement. It's a lot of
right from the church
all
to
the
the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts,
big problem.
Sports, the Olympics.
Yeah,
it's in everywhere. Government, everywhere. There's always a few bad apples, and they will spoil.
If we don't do something about it, they will.
If we don't do something about it, that's what'll happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those words are well taken. Hopefully next week I might be having a guest to talk about police issues. Still working on it. Don't have it confirmed, so it might be an interesting story next week. But,
all right, Jonathan is shifting on me.
The camera?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It did that once before.
The camera's not shifting. You are.
Oh, I'm shifting.
Because I adjust the camera. I adjust the camera.
You mean how I'm sitting
to you, and then you shift on me.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'm hearing the theme.
Don't get
music,
shifty. Don't get shifty on us, Jonathan.
Everything is wrapping down. There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Then he'll set up on me, and his head will get cut off.
Yeah, I do move around too much in this chair. I gotta change that. Like that. Okay.
All right. Because I don't be looking at the camera. I just switch to you, and then I see that you're doing something or you're off camera.
Off camera, yeah.
Because it was set up on you when I was last there, and then I go to you, and
I got to be more stationary.
You got to be more stationary. You got to work.
I'll work on that.
We don't have a dedicated camera crew. You keep you framed up no matter where you go.
Properly, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to whatever show that you're going to be doing, tomorrow, and sometime you have a special guest on Thursdays?
We have special guests booked until the middle of November.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting calls from all kinds of people who want to be special guests. So, I was kind of hoping Thursday could be a day I could sleep late, but.
Right.
Guess not.
So you all set now for your special guest format into mid-November for Thursdays.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow,
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, till the middle of the month.
So till almost Thanksgiving, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
So do they come to you, or do you just come to them? I mean, what's the whole process?
They come to me.
They come to you?
Yeah. Now we have some education guests. I reached out to them
Okay.
because I want to talk to all of the candidates running for Board of Ed, which is
Very
what we
good.
will be doing for the next 4 Thursdays.
Oh,
Great.
okay.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, we're out of time. Great guest this morning. Thanks, Jonathan.
No problem.
Thanks, Miss Vicky.
Yes, always a pleasure.
And, we'll see you all. Thank you all out there. And we'll see you next time. All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.